Hello, welcome back to my guides for ON1 Photo Raw 2019. Today I'm going to try and rescue this image. It's overexposed, it has highlights problems, and a lot of color toning problems. Anyway, this is kind of a new series on my channel. As a photographer, you probably have a lot of images that you feel like, oh, there's no chance I can do anything with these images. I sure do feel that sometimes. So you really need to put a lot of work into those images to get them to work. But sometimes you come across an image that are just slightly unusable. So if you do a little work on it, maybe it can work. I have never tried to fix this image inside of ON1 Photo Raw. I've done so in Lightroom and it didn't turn out good, so we're gonna try and do it in ON1 Photo Raw 2019. So let's just jump in and do the edits here. So I'm going straight to the develop module. I'm going to drop the highlights. I don't want to select another camera profile than the standard. You might not see ON1 standard because it depends on the camera what kind of profiles you have here. Yeah, so we drop the highlights. Let's enable the clipping warning. You can enable it by pushing down Alt and J or Option J, depending if you're on Windows or Mac. Anyway, as you can see, this image is clipping pretty badly. So we went down on the highlights. Let's go down even more. I know I need to lower the exposure, so we're gonna do that right away. Okay, let's just go up slightly on the shadows. And let's drop down the blacks to around here. Yeah, as you can see, we are clipping in the blacks, but that doesn't matter. And the temp I'm going to leave for now. We're going into the effects. We're going to add a tone enhancer. And hopefully the compression slider under the tone enhancer will remove the clipping. So let's just try and see if it does. So I'm going up on the compression to 85. No, it's not enough. Let's go up even more. Nope, so it's not enough. Let's drop the highlights. Let's drop it some more. Okay, so I need to go down on the whites. And it's gone. Let's see what happens if we go down on the compression again. Yeah, so if we do, we have some clipping. So that is what I wanted to show. The compression slider under the tone enhancer can actually be a part of rescuing your overexposed images and even underexposed images. So always go in and try the compression slider. I'm going to put it up to around half. So it's still clipping. I'm going to drop the highlights completely. So it's still clipping. Let's go into the curves. So you actually have the curves too that you can work on inside of this filter. So I'm going to try and fix it with a basic S curve. So I'm just gonna drop down the whites ever so slightly to around 249. Yeah. So we actually managed to remove the clipping using this filter, and that's pretty awesome. And I also want to drop down the exposure, and this will help remove some of the clipping. So I want to drop it down to around here. So I also want to do something about the shadows here. It's maybe too much shadow, so I'm going up just carefully, yeah, to around here. Let's drop the highlights even more, so to around here. Okay, so that's the general toning. We can always go back into the tone enhancer and change it some more. We can even drop another tone enhancer and try and do something about that. So by working with the tone enhancer and the toning under the develop module, you can really rescue a lot of images, but there are no details here now. The clipping is gone, that's okay, but I don't think there's any detail here at all. Anyway, at least it will print something if you were to print this image. So let's add a color enhancer. So instead of setting the temp and the tint under the tone and color module under develop, I usually use the tone enhancer. This can set the global temp, it can set the tint, and it can set the overall saturation and the overall vibrance. So I'm actually going up on both. I'm gonna add some magenta because I love magenta, and warm it up just a little bit here. Okay, so now we have the general toning and the color toning done. We are going in on each color and we're gonna adjust them separately. So there are some reds here. We are gonna increase the saturation and just a little bit of brightness. Then we are going into the orange. We are going to increase the saturation and we are actually going down on the brightness. This is so we can create separation between the reds and the orange. You might not see the difference immediately, but the difference is there. So that's the before, that's the after. So I'm actually going to create just a little bit more kind of reddish color on these trees over here. Let's go into the yellows. We are going to go up pretty heavy on the saturation, and we are going to drop the brightness a lot. So to around here, it's a bit too much on the saturation. And then we are actually going to go into the greens and we are going to increase the brightness on the greens. So that also creates kind of a separation between the yellows and the greens. Okay, there might be some aquas in this image, but I don't think it is, so I'm just gonna skip it. There are some purple here, so I'm going to go up pretty heavy on the saturation on the purples, and I'm going to go up on the brightness because I want to go down on the magentas. So this is creating kind of a softer feeling because the separation between the colors are really high on this image. Even though it only seems like there are only two colors, green and kind of brownish, there are so many colors in this image. Okay, so that's done. We have done the color enhancer. Maybe we should soften this image just a little bit. Yeah, let's do the glow. So the glow is disabled by default, or the amount is at 0 by default. But if you click one of the presets, it will of course change. And this is kind of what I want to have in this image, a soft feeling. But this is far too soft. So we can try and change the modes here. So I'm going to go for maybe multiply. Yeah, that's kind of nice actually, but maybe too dark. We can go for overlay. That's actually nice. I need to adjust the saturation, but it's pretty good. I like it a lot. Let's see if a sunshine filter actually helps this image. Kind of does. We need to go down on the exposure, but yeah, it might work on this image. And we definitely need to tweak the saturation now. Okay, so then we are going into the dynamic contrast. I want this image to be kind of soft. The softer it is, the less noisy it is. So we are actually going to try and go negative on these sliders, maybe negative 12, negative 15. Yeah, to around here. So not only can it create the contrasty sharpening effect, but it can apparently also create a softening effect. So just going down even more on these sliders, yeah, to around here. Now you can see that the needles are starting to get soft and dreamy and maybe some mystery in this wood. So if we go into the tone enhancer again and try and lower the exposure, let's see what happens. Okay, so we have the dynamic contrast, we have the sunshine, and I'm gonna put some glow. Okay, so I kind of get the feeling that we are creating some depth in this image as well. So it kind of feels like there is some dimension to this image. It's not flat and boring, but it's starting to get really, really oversaturated. So we need to fix that. So we are going back into the color enhancer and let's just drop the global saturation down to around 2 maybe. And also the vibrance down to around 8. Yeah, that's 7. Yeah, let's go into the yellows and into the greens and lower the saturation as well. Okay, so this is okay. And then we are going to add the vignette and big softy, and we need to adjust the brightness, yeah, to around here. Okay, so let's check the feather here. Yeah, so I think the vignette is where it should be. Maybe go up slightly in the size here. Okay, so now we definitely have some depth in this photo, but it's still not soft enough for me, and we need to do some dodge and burn. So let's go into the local adjustments. Yeah, and we're gonna start the burn right away. I'm just gonna call this burn. And let's go up on the structure because I do want to highlight some of the structure that is down on the ground. Let's try and go up on the temp as well, and maybe even the saturation and some on the vibrance. Let's go up on structure, and we're gonna go up, no, down on the shadows and down a little bit on the blacks, and maybe up to around 7, yeah, to around there. Okay, so now we are going to start and paint in the burn here. As you can see on top, the opacity is at 100. I would rather adjust the opacity in the filter instead of on top here. And I'm just gonna start painting in some darkness. As you can see, it's pretty heavy. It's far too much, but we can always go down with the opacity. So with dodge and burning, you want to create contrast between the light and the dark. And this is what we are trying to do right now. And as you can see, it's far too heavy, but we can always tweak it to wherever we want to have it. So don't worry about that yet. This will also help create some dimension in your photos. So dodge and burn is a really important process. And dodge and burning is kind of time consuming. It's a bit better in Lightroom. But the thing about ON1 is that you have so many options for what you want to do. So if you want to do dodge and burn, you can do that with a tone enhancer. You can do it inside of the local adjustments. You can do it with sharpening. There's a lot of options for you when you want to do dodge and burn. So that's the thing I think ON1 are doing a lot better than Adobe with Lightroom. That's just my opinion. And also, when it comes to dodge and burn, it's really important that you kind of find your style. So I kind of go for a huge separation between the lights and the darks, and possibly it's kind of unrealistic to some people, but that's my style. I like to do it that way. Just do whatever you want, try and find your style. Do that with the color toning as well. Try and find your style. Try and stick with one kind of style for your photos, and you will probably be noticed on Instagram and stuff like that. If you share on Instagram, you will be noticed a lot quicker. Okay, so that's the ground. Let's see if there's something we want to dodge and burn above the ground, so in the trees and the sky. So actually I don't think there is anything up in the trees I want to burn. I might want to go in and actually highlight some of the trees instead. Okay, so I think we are done now with the burn. Let's add an adjustment, and this adjustment we are going to call dodge. And we're gonna click the lighten and maybe go down slightly on the exposure. We want to make sure that we don't create too flat lights, so we need to put on some contrast. We need to put down the shadows just a little bit. Contrast to around 20, I guess. Yeah, let's try it around there. Then we're gonna go up just slightly on the whites and slightly on the blacks. And let's do some structure to around, yeah, to around 10, maybe 15 actually. Yep, that's it. And let's drop the opacity on the burn here, because we need to drop it more, even more, a bit more. So yeah, that's okay. And we're gonna paint in the Dutch. I kind of want to lead the viewer down here, so I'm gonna be careful on the sides not to light too much. Let's keep the light focused in the middle here, but we of course need to keep it realistic. I'm actually thinking maybe I should increase the saturation, so let's up it to around, whoa, that's that's too much, to around 20, maybe go down even more, 15, yeah, so around here somewhere. Okay, so I just want to highlight where it's already kind of light. I don't want to go into the dark and try and change the dark into light, or go into the light and try and change the light into the dark. Okay, so I think maybe go over here ever so slightly, go in here and try and create a leading line over here. Same from here. Yeah, this kind of works actually. I want to highlight just a little bit up here. And just some other places around here. Yeah, okay, so this is actually fine. It's a bit too saturated and it's a bit too bright, but we're gonna lower the opacity. Okay, so that kind of works. We are not done yet. I'm going back to change it, so don't worry, it's not gonna look like this. But we are going to create some softness, or paint in some softness. We're gonna add another adjustment. We're gonna reset the exposure, and we are going into the structure and gonna do some negative structure, and maybe even some slight negativity on the contrast. And we're gonna go up on this, up on the needles, and just soften it down. It's too noisy right now. We're even gonna soften down the ground a little bit on certain places, maybe around, oops, here as well. So you kind of see what this does, right? So the thing is, I want this picture to be a bit dark, so I'm going to go down the exposure soon here, but I just want to get rid of all this composition noise. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Let's go down even more on the structure. And you can of course also do this with a dynamic contrast filter. That would maybe work a little better, but I'm gonna stick to this filter now. And then let's go into the effects and into the tone enhancer, and let's just drop the exposure. Yes, so that's a big difference in my opinion. So we went from this is the original, and it looks bloody awful, and this is what we got now. So I think that's actually pretty nice. There might be some issues with the lightning over here or the highlights over here, but this is stuff I would adjust after being away from the computer or working on another picture for a few hours. Then I would go back and check this image, and I would probably go down on the saturation on both the greens and the yellows, and maybe create even more separation between those two colors. But anyway, I think this actually works, and it's not as noisy as it was before. Before it was a lot of mess just because it was kind of sharp, even though the picture was terribly flat. Okay, so this does it for this image. It's not perfect, it's not a portfolio image, but it might work on Instagram and stuff like that. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to buy ON1 Photo Raw 2019, you can do so by clicking the link in the description. It will give you 10% off. I would really be happy if you click that thumbs up and of course subscribe. Anyway, see you again. Thanks a lot for watching.